Welcome to Unshakable Belief, where we dive deep into stories of resilience, faith, and finding your purpose. I'm your host, Monica Connolly, here to help you unlock your inner strength and take action toward a life you love. Let's get started. Today's guest is Angelina Rivera, a creative entrepreneur and founder of Refine and Shine, a podcast dedicated to helping individuals refine their path and shine in their unique calling. Angelina is also the visionary behind a successful consulting and coaching agency where she uses her passion for time management to help others to improve their productivity, their profits, and their efficiencies. In this episode, we'll dive into her journey, her insights on personal growth, and how she helps others find their purpose. Angelina, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm truly honored to be a guest on your podcast. I'm so excited.
Well, we actually met doing personal growth and personal development conferences, and I know that you have been really pivotal with some of those conferences in helping those mentors of ours change some of their processes to make things more efficient. But you also are an entrepreneur. So what pivotal moment did you have in life where you said, I'm going to try the entrepreneur business and see how it goes?
Well, I think I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, even at a young age, always trying to figure out ways to make money. Starting from babysitting at the age of 10, I was babysitting infants, so to speak, and just always finding ways. And I actually started working at a very young age where I even had to start paying taxes at the age of 14. But I've always wanted to, we came from a very poor family, and it was a struggle a lot. And if I wanted anything, I needed to figure out a way to make it work. And so if it was having a yard sale because my friends were all going to Disneyland and I wanted to go too, it was going through all my clothes and having a yard sale or going to just figuring out things, helping people clean out their stuff so that I could sell their stuff. I mean, that they didn't want, and there was something that I had to do at a very young age just to do the things I wanted to do. My mom couldn't afford a lot of things, and it was, she struggled and well, she worked hard and was able to provide for us. I know that the extras were not something that we could do. And so I always worked really hard at a young age and always was trying to find a way, like I said, to make money, whether it was also being in Girl Scouts or brownies, doing the cookie sales, all the stuff, always just trying. And I always had this like way of thinking that I could improve things all the time. I mean, I got in trouble so many times from maybe arguing with my mom, I guess you could say, when I would figure out ways to make things like streamline our processes, right? To clean up our bedroom. And I'm like, we can do it. There's three of us. We can do it faster than you because there's three of us in an hour where you think for her, she's like, well, it would take me 3 hours. I know. I go, yeah, because it's you working by yourself, but all of us are working on a system and we would divide up the room so that we all had a part. And she would get really mad at me. But now it's funny because that's actually what I help people do. I look at ways to help improve their processes and efficiencies. But starting my own business became because everybody was always asking me. I always had an attack for helping people with events, whether putting on weddings, putting on different things, helping them with their decorations. My old organization, we had a nonprofit organization to help put events on for and to recognize our employees. So looking at ways to fundraise, looking at all these things. It's been something I've done for about 20 plus years. And I was just on the side, right? And then I was like, I could make a business out of this. And anytime somebody does an event that it maybe works in alignment with my schedule, I'm like, hey, can I help you out? And it's been so fun to do that and the time management and the coaching started about because people are always like, hey, how do you manage to do all these things? How do you get all these things done? You work full time, you're still doing this, you don't look burned out. And what is it? Well, mastering the skill of time management, mastering the skill of just having systems in place to help me do the things I needed to do. And when people keep asking you the same questions over and over, you're like, I should start coaching on this. And when I first started coaching, I just put something out there and I thought maybe 3 people will respond. And I got 7 people in my first class coaching program. And I was like, okay. And it's built from there. And the next thing people have had me ask questions a lot is, how do you like deal with the distractions? And so my next course is going to be on disruptive distractions, because we all face them. And how do you deal with those things? And it's taken life lessons and the tools that I've learned along the way through my full-time job, working for the Department of Defense. I became a Lean Six Sigma black belt, which means that you are trained in processes and how do you look at the efficiencies and things like that. And prior to that, I worked for a company where I worked in lean manufacturing. I became lean manufacturing certified. And again, looking at processes, leaning out the waste, leaning out um, the waste. And when I say waste, it's like movement, transportation, excess inventory, over processing. Those are the things that I just have always had the brain to look at. Like I'm like I focus on those things. I'll go to a restaurant and I'm like, it's taking too long to do something. Well, they're probably understaffed in the kitchen, or and sometimes it's so annoying to people around me, but I'm like, no, they need to fix this. And so I was like, hey, you know what? Why don't I start offering these services to small, medium size, small businesses that need help with these things? And so that's kind of how the journey came about. And so that's what I've been doing.
That's
It's been
crazy
fun.
that it sounds like you've had this gift from a very young age. And I call it a gift because not everybody has the ability to manage their time. And I know when I first met you, that was something that stuck out to me was I would see you at events and you were always very efficient with what you were doing. And I always was like, wow, like she's all over the place. She's at every event that I go to. And I knew that you were traveling a lot for work and you have a family, and yet you still had time to get it all done. It um, sounds like it's definitely come in really handy, and it's something that you definitely have shown incredible skill with. I know that faith has been a big part of your journey. Can you tell us a little bit about how your faith shaped the decisions that you've made in your career as well as in your entrepreneurial journey? Because I know you have a couple of businesses that you have on the side.
Mhm. Yeah, so faith has always been something from a little kid, since I was young. My grandmother baptized me, and it's always something like one of our favorite memories was going to church and singing the hymns, and we went to a Catholic church, and I just loved all of those things. But later in life, as life changes, things happen. I started going to a non-denominational church, a Christian church, that we just did worship a little differently. We had a pastor who was married, and it was a little bit different than dealing with a priest. But at the time in my life, it was something I needed. My husband and I needed for our relationship. And it was just something, once I started going to this church, it was just and listening to the gospel and the worship music and Christian music. It's something I have to do daily now. And it just changed my world. And it's made me look at the Bible in a different path. And it's something that I really has helped me get through some of the hardest moments in life. And I'm talking like I've lost, I had a miscarriage at 5 months pregnancy, and I know that it's all God's timing, and it's a lot of things where God put things into happen the way that they happen, because he knows the plans he has for us, and I rely heavily on that. And I know that there are times when I'm like, okay, these are really hard times. And then I reflect, God got me through all the hard times. And so it's something that's definitely is a part of my daily routine. And just recently, when I walked away from the Department of Defense and I took a job with Department of Commerce, that was a huge pivotal moment, because when you're in a routine and you're consistently going, the same thing, you're complacent, everything feels good. Like, why would you shake that up? I just knew in my heart that there was something else I was made for. And when I finally accepted that job offer after, finding it, and I interviews and all the things, and I accepted that job offer, if I could show you what the sky looked like the day that right when I made that decision, I was just driving and I was just praying to God, and I'm driving to work, and I'm like, just something came, like, it was just like this whole feeling rushed over me, came and said, take the job. And so, okay, I'm going to take it. And I just looked up at the sky, and it just was this beautiful sky. The way that it was so beautiful, it was like God's promise. And the song that came on was something about promises, and it was like, I'm going to take care of you. And even though this job that I have now is great, it is a lot of travel, and even when the things get a little hard with timing and the balance, I hold on to the faith that God wouldn't have put this to happen for a reason, and it's allowed me to actually pursue other things like meeting different people and doing more events, and it's helped me with the time, a little bit more freedom to do my podcast, because that was something when I was working 6 days a week at my other job, I didn't really have the time for the extras. And this is like, okay, God gave me this job so that I can do the extras, even if I'm away, from my family at times, flying back and forth from the West Coast to the East Coast. It's allowed me to do like I said, the podcast on Saturdays is kind of like how I batched my processes. And it's been such a blessing. And I think that just knowing that everywhere that I go, like he's guiding me, and he's giving me, and he actually gave me my strengths, right? He fed these to me and said, here, these are your strengths. And I've done the studies and I've done the testing, and like, believe it or not, one of my strengths is futuristic, to look at the future. Like, I can look up the future and not like, plan out the future. I'm a planner. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that is. And it was so crazy when I got those results, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. I can look at things, and I love the connections, one of my other strengths. And so I love connecting people. I love connecting processes, and like building system maps, and building things so that I can help people. And it's just been really, I know that if he's giving you these strengths, it's something that you need to go ahead and execute, because he gives you things for a purpose. And so, yeah, that's a huge part of my life is my faith.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something that we both have attended, like we said, a lot of events together, and usually they are run, in faith,
Mhm.
and a lot of times we say that the event took us to church because it was
Yeah.
just, everyone there has strong faith, and we all lean on each other and support each other. And that faith has just been so important to so many of us. So I'm sure that you've had a lot of mentors in your life and people who have had influence in your life. Can you talk to us about those people and how they've impacted your life and how they've impacted your career?
I've had a lot of mentors, and one of them that comes to mind, and was in 6th grade. We had a long-term sub. I think it was 6th grade. It was 6th grade, and he was a math teacher. His name was Mr. Costa, and he was like and he really helped me realize. He was like, I believe in you, and nobody had ever told me that the way that a teacher. I didn't have a lot of male teachers, and he was a male teacher, and he said, I really, he was harsh, and not in a bad way. Like, he was like, you need to make sure you're hanging around with the right crowd. You need to make sure you're doing your studies. I think that you could be valedictorian one day. You got a great head on your shoulders, and it was just the way. And he even gave me a book. It was about like motivational speech, like quotes and speeches and stuff. And I was like, okay. And so that was like, so I always like made sure that I did my homework and did all the other things. Like, I was a latchkey kid, so I came home. My mom wasn't there. I didn't have to do my homework, but because of that, I just made sure I was really did my education really well. And I did not make valedictorian, but I did have beyond a 4.0 in high school. And, I did all the things. I was in the top 5. So, but it was always like, it was him that had, like, I always thought about, like, okay, I want to do this because he said he believed in me. So he was a really good mentor. Somebody that, just because he had that watch who you surround yourself with conversation too. And I think that was so important because of the way that, we grew up in an area where you could easily turn to the wrong crowd. And I made sure that I was in the right crowd. The other mentor I had was when I worked for the Department of Defense, and I was the executive secretary at the time, and we had a new deputy commander coming in, and he was really into process improvement. And I was like, I want to get my green belt. And he was like, most of the time when they were really sending people who, I was a secretary, right? Executive secretary, as a top secretary of the organization, but they were sending people who were like in the manufacturing. And I'm like, no, I want to do this because I came up with the whole project of how we were wasting time writing these reports, and like we were not being notified. It was a whole process. And when I like highlighted it and like kind of like I wrote my report on why I wanted to go to this training, he was like, "Oh yeah, you're going to the training." And he has helped influence my love for um process improvement. And even though I had done at my old job prior to that some stuff, this was more of like not just from a manufacturing side, but from processes, paper reduction, all these other things. And he really put the faith and belief in me. And so he was a really big influence in my life. And Brooke Hemingway is just a huge influence. I see all that she has achieved, and she was the one that was a big influence in me getting into coaching, me looking into what other jobs could I do, because she knew that I was in a position where I wasn't able to be promoted much more. And she's like, if you're going to work for this much years, is this really what you want to do? Or could you, what, like, don't look at just the 25, 45-mile radius of where you are. You can do whatever you want to do. You just got to believe in yourself. And Amberly Lago. Amberly Lago is a huge other influence, just because she'll show you that no matter what has happened to you, what's pushed you down, you can get up and accomplish great things. So those are just a few. I mean, I have a lot of great mentors, but I think that those would be some really great influential mentors who, like, not just, it's not somebody I've watched from afar, like I actually know them and have conversations and rely on them when I need somebody to hold me, you know, to mentor me and guide me. I would believe those are some great ones I have.
Definitely. I love that you talked about a teacher. I have a lot of teachers in my family, but I also am still in contact with a lot of my teachers from middle school and from high school. And we, thanks to the wonderful world of Facebook, we're able to stay connected, even though, we live so far apart now. But there have been so many teachers that had so much influence in my life. And so, I think that, and it's funny because I've talked to people in the last couple of weeks, and they've said the same thing, that their teachers really had such an influence and such an impact on their life. And
Mhm.
I don't think most teachers don't ever get into they don't get into the job for that. And so I think that being able to say this many years after, after getting out of school, this person really had an impact on my life and still continues to. I still, there's still things that my teachers said to me that I still think about, or things that I still do because of the guidance that I had from my teachers. So I really like that. And I have to agree, Brooke Hemingway and Amberly Lago, me and Angelina have both had the honor of being able to become really close with them and really, have guidance and mentorship from them. And so it definitely has been beneficial for both of us. We've both learned a lot from them.
I actually would like to add too, if you don't mind. There was two in my family, and it would be my mom. My mom's was a huge mentor to me. When I say she was a mentor, she showed me that you can do anything you put your mind to it. And I have had the privilege of watching my mom graduate from her bachelor's degree. I remember, I can tell you the way it looked, how the day, everything about that day. And I was 5 years old, and it's such a pivotal moment. And I remember her walking, getting her diploma, when we went out to eat afterwards, what we had for dinner that night, like all of those things is such a huge thing. And so she always made me understand. I remember her typing her papers in the typewriter at night, and all the things. And so she was always something that, someone that was a mentor, somebody that I just really looked up to, as well as my grandma, both of my grandmas, my nana, my mom's mom. She just was just resilient in finding ways to make things ends meet. She would do paperwork for people, iron clothes for people, wash people's clothes, like do all the things that she could do just to make sure that money, food was put on the table. And what she could cook out of, like, if I looked at the ingredients, I would be like, I can't cook anything. I don't know what to make. We don't have nothing to eat. And she would make the best meals. She still does make the best meals. And also my dad's mom, she was one of the first journeyman mechanics for the production plant that I worked at. And she was just a hard worker, and she raised 6 kids pretty much on her own, and was a female in the production plant as a mechanic, which was amazing. And so I mean, yeah, those would just be some great ones too that I just don't want to forget because they really have an impact on my life.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about your grandmothers before, and they definitely they were such strong women and definitely had such, they were such a presence in your life is always kind of what I took when you talked about them. They had a very large presence in your life and definitely, kind of help guide you to realizing that you were really capable of doing anything too, because they showed you that, they did amazing things and they showed you you could do it too.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Yeah. So we talked about your faith some, but how do you incorporate your faith into your work?
I pray a lot. I pray a lot. Actually, I don't just make decisions hastily. Like I don't overanalyze to the point where I don't make a decision. But if there's something big, a change to make, like I pray to God and ask Him for guidance. Is this the right direction that I need to take? And it's part of my routine. You have to make sure to have good habits, right? And God tells you, the Bible outlines how to be, the habits that you should have and how you have to trust in him. And so I rely on those things. And when, and things are, when things don't always work out, I don't get, maybe I bid for a project and I don't get the bid. I don't just be like, oh, well, it wasn't meant to be because God didn't want me to have it. I'm like, okay, God, what are the lessons you're teaching me? What did I do wrong? Or what lessons do I have to fix? Or what do I have to put into place so I can handle this big type of project? And I use those type of tools instead of it just wasn't meant to be. God didn't want it. It wasn't part of God's plan. I'm like, okay, what is the lessons or what is the what do I have to have in place or what am I slacking in my maybe my family life that I need to fix before I take on a large project or something like that? Because there's been times where maybe I've competed for a job and I didn't get the job. And as much as I really needed that job, I looked at it as maybe I wasn't qualified enough. And so what could I do to get the qualifications? And that's when I went to school to get my black belt degree or certification, or I just did different things in life, and and learned, made myself stronger, and so that I was a more qualified for positions. And then when ones opened up, it was made me marketable. And also during those times was when there were some family issues that I really needed to be present. And had I taken that job or had gotten the job, I wouldn't be able to be there for my family the way that I needed to be there while we were going through some troubling times. And so I always think of it as that, even when, like I think it's really important. There's always a lesson to be learned, but sometimes people just think, oh, it's just not part of God's plan. Well, why? Is there other things that you should do? Other things you need to clean up in your life, and things like that. I think I take that very seriously. And I know that it's also making sure I do the actions. Like he's not going to just give you everything that you want if you're not taking the actions to do it. And if he gives me life every day, what am I doing to celebrate that life? What am I doing to take care of my body? What am I doing to take care of my mind, body, and soul to appreciate that I'm here this day on earth? And so I think that's part of my routine and how faith just keeps guiding me to do the right things and just take appreciation for everything that I'm given. People take a lot of things for granted when sometimes just being able to have food in the refrigerator is such a blessing, because I remember when we were younger having to wait in line for the bread, the government cheese, the peanut butter, and stirring the peanut butter and all the things. And so I'm just very blessed that God provided me a means to be able to have food in the, in the refrigerator, food in the cupboard, and all those things. And so it's something that you just thankful every paycheck. Thank you, God, for giving me this ability to make this money to provide for my family. It's just a huge part of my everyday routine to guide me through my work and everything. And I think that some people get so frustrated with their job and their work, and they don't understand that some people would just be dying just to have a job, just to be blessed to have a job. And if you're in this position or any job that you're in, make it the best. Don't waste time being frustrated. And if you're so frustrated, then find another job, because there's somebody else who really would just love to have that same job that you have. just love to be able to provide for their family. I think that's so important. Um, Not being angry all the time about, the position you're in or anything. Like, what can I make out of it? Try to make the best out of everything is what I strive to do.
Yeah, that's something that part of my journey was learning to be grateful even for the small things. And sitting and looking every day and saying, what am I grateful for? And
Mhm.
I may have had a hard day at work, but I have a job that puts a roof over my head and puts groceries in my kitchen and
Mhm.
pays for the things that I need. And like you said, there's so many people that, they would take that in a heartbeat. They would take that job. And so that journey of gratitude, I think, is something that it's very easy to become complacent and not be grateful for the things that you have. And really taking the time to reevaluate that, and it just really changes your mindset and how you
Mhm.
look at situations. You become more positive. It just does really make a huge difference in your life. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I always ask people, what are steps that you think my listeners could take if they're starting out on a journey of their own?
Well, it depends. I mean, whatever journey that you're starting on, like whatever journey, I think the first thing that's most important to do and is you need to get whatever thoughts come to your mind or whatever thoughts, whatever you're planning on, whether it's an event you want to start doing, retreats, events, you want to start up a business. I say that you brain dump, you write everything that you're thinking of, you just write it all down. And some people were like, well, how do I write it down? Write it whatever you need to write it down. I think that the more you write it down, the more that you become, it makes it more actionable and more real. So I will easily do, and I like a brain dump on a paper, like a sheet of paper. And then I start to categorize them, and then I start putting them on Post-it notes. And I mean, I have it right, like Post-it notes. And then I'm like, okay, this is going to be, say I'm mapping out something or a process or like a course. And I'm like, okay, these thoughts keep coming. I write it all out. And then I start putting all the pieces together on how it should look like. What is it going to be? Visualize it. And I think that's why it's so important. When it stays in your head, it's dead. You need to take it out, put it on paper. So then you feel it. You're writing it. You get the emotions out of the excitement. You're like, start to get excited. If you would see the way that I map out stuff, I mean, I get the sticky notes, I get the whiteboard, and I do the same thing when I consult with people. I'm like, you have all these goals. Let's start writing it on paper. Let's look at it. Let's visualize it. What's it going to feel like? How much money do you want to make? Or what's the process? How much time do you want to save? Like, these are the things so that you get excited about what you're doing, and you see that there's a future. You have goals. You have metrics in place. That it's not just doing the motions. Like, you really are going to get excited about what you're doing. I think that's so important. Um, and just having those type of things, like journal about it, make it a part of your routine. Spend about 15 to 20 minutes, if that's all you have, to just think about what is it that I'm creating, and what do I want to help people with? How do they want to feel when they receive my services? And it'll really help guide you, and it'll hold you onto that purpose that you have in that mission. It's really going to help you step forward. I think that's very important. And try to do, I also recommend just time blocking some time. You want to build this thing, whatever it is you're building, set some time, look at your calendar, and can you set aside maybe an hour each day to work on what you want to create? If you can't work on an hour a day, okay, maybe you can do an hour Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But small actionable steps are really going to add up and help you build what you want to build. And I think that's so important. Some people just like, well, I don't have time. Well, it takes you a little bit of time to write it all down and then just work on the next part and the next part and the next part. When I started my podcast, it was something I had on my mind for about 2 years before I finally did it. But it launched so quickly once I set the date because I started building my list. What was my theme? I bought the website domain. Like, I started doing all of these things, actionable steps, so that once I was able to, get it done, I was done. I had the mic for over a year. I had all these things in place. But once I was able to, like, hey, this is the date. And it was just such a streamlined process because I was working on it, here, at times, scheduling times. Maybe I was only able to do one week, a Saturday for 2 hours, and then another Saturday 2 weeks later. But it was just making those actionable steps to move forward. And I think that's so important. Don't try to take it all on at once, but you can do actionable steps. You can schedule it out, time block some time, and get it all done. I think that's so important. But the first thing, get it out of your head and put it on paper, because we forget these great things that we have. It's just the way our brain is.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely. And I think there's such a connection when you actually write it down on paper. You get it out of your mind, you write it down on paper, and all of a sudden there's some accountability there. And you're like, it's like saying something out loud, and you're like, oh, now I've said it out loud. Now I have to follow through with it. And so you take that, everything that everything that you're building in your brain, you take and you put that out on paper. And I love to do the same thing. I make lists and start getting things going, and I've got Post-it notes, and then I've got the big whiteouts, the whiteout Post-it notes on the wall with things
Yep.
on them, and you just build it out, and then you put it all together and see how it's all going to fit. But when you don't ever get it out, there's never any motivation or any accountability for you to actually ever move forward with it, and you stay stuck where you're at.
You stay stuck, and then you get distracted by things because your brain thinks about it for a minute, and then you don't take the time to really digest it, and then you start working on something else. But you have that thought keep lingering on there. And if you keep having that, you need to just get it out. I like to do a brain dump every night before I go to bed, so that way I can have peaceful sleep. What did I do, or what am I going to do tomorrow? Like all the things. It's just truly, it helps so much. And I think that a lot of times, like you said, even just saying it out loud and having that accountability too. Like tell somebody that you trust. You can't tell your stuff to everybody. There's some people that are going to be the naysayers. So find a person that you trust, find a mentor or somebody that you can talk to and say, hey, I want to do this. What do you think? And then, really start thinking about it, and they'll follow up with you and say, hey, have you started this, or what are you working on? And I think it's so important, but you got to start. So
Yeah. And I think that, part of that is making sure that you're in community. That's
Mhm.
something that has, over the 2 years since I started getting involved in personal development, that's something that has been huge, is getting involved in community and finding people who are trying to do the same thing as you are, or have already been where you're trying to get to, and, learning from them, bouncing ideas off of them. They're those people that you're talking about that you can go to and you can say, here's this idea. It might sound crazy, but I know you're not going to shoot me down. You're going to listen to it.
Mhm.
And so, being able to take those ideas back to those communities and getting advice from them, and, really getting that support and that accountability for being able to move forward with it. Yeah,
Yes. Yes. I think it's so
definitely.
important.
Yeah, something in our is something in a lot of the communities that we're in is setting a date for something. And when you set a date, it actually puts that pressure on you to you now have set a date, you've spoken it, you've said you're going to do this. And so I say that I'm a planner because I like to plan things out, but I'm also a procrastinator in the sense that I'm like, well, do I want to schedule this appointment that day because something else may come up and then I'm going to have to change the appointments. But if you set a date for something, and then it's kind of set in stone and it's harder to move. Oh, yeah.
I think setting the date is also so important, and just in anything. I mean, think about it like as a wedding. Um, you set the date, and then you bring dump, and you have to do all these things, and then it kind of helps give you that timeline that you can start blocking. Okay, I need to have the vendor in place right here. Or I need to have the catering. It helps with all those things, and those are the things that I love. Like I thrive off of that. That's what I help coach people and consult with them. If they want to improve their processes, I'm like, okay, what you have a cycle time, and you have 90 days is your cycle time, but you really need to get it down to 60 days. Let's go through your processes. Let's get everything that's a process. It's the same thing as any event or anything that you're planning or you want to put down, open up a business. All of it, you set the date, you have a goal. It's a metric. Now, what do you need to do to reach that metric? What is the things that have to be put into place? What are the daily actions you have to do? I get excited about those things.
And it definitely, I've started using the processes, and it definitely has made a huge difference for me. I'm able to, take and put that date down, or, say this is what my plan is, and work backwards from that to say, okay, I have to do this week and this week. And so it breaks it down into manageable portions for you too.
Mhm. Yeah.
So you have a podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, so I have the Refine and Shine podcast, and the reason I had thought about it for a while, and I also had the negative thoughts, maybe too many people have podcasts, right, or all the things, but I have a different, mine's about how we refine and shine in our lives, and I may talk about like process improvement or like tools that I teach on time management, but also like we've all had setbacks in our lives, we've had all issues that have happened, things that have happened and how have we overcame them and how do we continue to shine in our lives, and that's what it's about. I mean, we all come from broken backgrounds or broken issues or things like that, and maybe it may not be as traumatic as others, but it doesn't matter. We all have things that we've been triggered by, all of the things, and or we may have not gotten a job, or may have had a miscarriage, or all the things. But how did we continue to what values did we instill in ourselves to keep going? I've had a variety of guests on my podcast, and I think it's good because it shows that no matter what obstacle that you have in front of you, there's ways that you can refine. It goes back to God gives us lessons, and challenges us to overcome things, and what were we able to do to overcome those so we can shine and keep shining today. And I think that's so important because there are days when we just have a hard day, and then we can listen to a podcast that gives us motivation that says, okay, I have my legs, I can walk, or I can do this or that, like appreciate and have gratitude for what you have. It all goes back to that, what we talked about earlier. And that's just how it came about. Refine and Shine. It was something that those just words kept coming to me and coming to me over the last couple of years. And it was like, that's what I'm going to call it. And then that's how I came up with Refine Consulting, because refine means to improve processes or to improve, make things better. And so it's all tied in together, and it's been fun. I think I've had it since July, and I've had a great time doing it, and I can't wait to keep interviewing more people and sharing more people, more listeners about just helping them uplift themselves to do something better each day for themselves. I think it's so important.
And we can listen to your podcast on Spotify and Apple as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You could just go to refine and shine podcast.com, and it'll give you all the links for Apple, Spotify, all the things. It has all of them on there. Yeah.
Perfect. And your website has your consulting business on it. It also has your coaching, the coaching that you do, one-on-one coaching. So those links will all be in the show notes for you to access. And you can reach out to Angelina if getting involved in her coaching or time management services, anything like that, is something that you think you would benefit from.
Yes, yes. I appreciate that. And there's some freebies on my website as well. So just check it out. And my email's there, and I also do free consultation calls. So just book a discovery call. It doesn't hurt. One thing I wanted to tell you is that when we think about things so often, all it does is take a question. Just ask the question. The answer is always going to be no if you don't ask. And so just ask for a call and we can have a conversation. Don't dwell on it too long because you're just losing sleep when you could be taking action.
Right? Yes. So definitely get connected with Angelina. She definitely will help you with getting, time management, especially, busy moms. That I think is a lifesaver, is learning how to manage your time when you're a busy mom, or if you have a large family, even a small family. You need to know how to manage your time efficiently. And Angelina has been there. She, it comes from personal experience from her. So Angelina, thank you so much for being here today and for jumping on and for giving us your tips. I'm excited to chat with you again soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm so, so excited that you're doing this podcast. I just wanted to say that real quick because we talked about it a couple of months ago and seeing it into fruition. just makes my heart happy because I love seeing people set goals and achieve them. So
Well,
congratulations on your
thank you so much. It definitely the support from the community of women that we're involved with definitely helped push this along. And so it's been fun, watching each other's journeys and, and seeing how we've grown over the last couple of years. It's really fun to look back and see how much has changed.
Yes, I love it.
All right. Well, you take care. You have a good night.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me on Unshakable Belief. If today's episode inspired you, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, trust your journey, embrace your purpose, and let your belief guide you forward.